I'm reading from my book, Fighting for Your Destiny, and I'm on to chapter 2, Isaac, Seed of Promise. Here we have a beautiful picture of perfect obedience. Isaac was not a child when Abram was asked to offer him as a burnt sacrifice to God. In Scripture, the word lad could refer to any age between young boy and young man. Ishmael was 14 years old when Isaac was born, so would have been about 18 when Isaac was weaned. It was during this time that Sarah pleaded with Abram to send Ishmael and his Egyptian mother away. This is what it says in Genesis 21 verse 12. And God said unto Abraham, Let it not be grievous in thy sight because of the lad, and because of thy bondwoman. In all that Sarah hath said unto thee, hearken unto her voice, for in Isaac shall thy seed be called. And Genesis 37 verse 2, Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brethren, and the lad was with the sons of Bilhah, and with the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives, and Joseph brought unto his father their evil report. From these two scriptures alone we can see that a lad is not necessarily a child, showing that Isaac willingly laid his life on the altar, as Abram would have had a tough job on his hands, himself being well over 100 years of age, if the lad had struggled or put up any resistance. I personally believe that he must have been over the age of 12 and able to make his own decisions. It was necessary that Abraham willingly offered up Isaac, but equally necessary that Isaac was a willing sacrifice. This is Leviticus 1 verse 3. If his offering be a burnt offering of the herd, let him offer a male without blemish. If he shall offer it of his own voluntary will, at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation before the Lord. Leviticus 19 verse 5. And if ye offer a sacrifice of peace offerings unto the Lord, ye shall offer it at your own will. Leviticus 22 verse 29. And when ye will offer a sacrifice of thanksgiving unto the Lord, offer it at your own will. Exodus 35 verse 2. Take ye from among you an offering unto the Lord. Whosoever is of a willing heart, let him bring it, an offering of the Lord, gold and silver and brass. To say Abram was wealthy could be regarded as an understatement. In Genesis 13, we read that at the very outset of his journey, the Egyptian Pharaoh showered him with gifts of servants, animals, gold and silver for the sake of his beautiful wife Sarah. This scenario was to be repeated later on in his walk with God, where he feared that his wife would be snatched from him, only to be blessed with more possessions and financial blessings. His nephew Lot also had his own herds, flocks and tents, and their combined substance was so great that the land could not support them both, living in the same vicinity. This problem caused strife between the herdsmen from both camps, so Lot and Abram decided to separate. Indeed, with every test along the way, his wealth grew and he prospered. Yes, the blessings of God brought untold wealth to Abram and his family of promise, but they came at a great cost. Isaac was not the only child sired by Abraham. He was one of 8 children in total. Hagar bore Abraham his first child, Ishmael, but some years after the death of his true love Sarah, he married Keturah, who bore him another 6 sons, Zimran, Jokshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shua. All these children were sons of Abraham, yet only Isaac was allowed to inherit both the promises and wealth he had acquired from God throughout his life. The other children were given gifts and sent away to live in other countries, whilst Isaac alone was allowed to remain. Is that because Isaac was any better than the other sons? No, I think not. Isaac was simply God's choice. If we are to be chosen of God, then to all intents and purposes, God will consider us to be holy. separate. We always think of being chosen by God as something desirable, as though this state would bring us the utmost pleasure and satisfaction. Yes, it can do, but only if we are prepared to be wholly faithful and committed to Him alone. You see, God is a jealous God and is very possessive of the things which belong to Him. He wants us for Himself alone, which means we need to be separated from anything and everything which could potentially come between us both. We all know that down through history the Israelites have been God's chosen people, but not every Israelite has wanted to belong to God. Some have despised and hated Him. Their sinful ways have caused God to punish them very cruelly in order to bring them to repentance. Indeed, I have even heard some present-day Jews pray and ask God to choose another people. Abram understood all about love and proved this by only ever wanting one woman, his barren wife Sarah, even though with such wealth he could have had a harem full of women. Being such a loving, tender person, his heart must have wrenched each time he had to wave one of his children goodbye, knowing that it was for the sake of the child of promise. Yet being one of God's chosen always comes at a cost. After being privy to what took place when Abram led his son up the mountain to sacrifice to God, we read nothing further concerning Isaac until 37 years of age he was bereaved of his mother. And 3.5 years later, Abram sent out his trusted steward Eliezer to find him a bride. Abram was still alive, with Isaac dwelling under his godly protection. Isaac was going to be blessed for sure, because God had already made a covenant with Abram, which included his son Isaac, before he was even born. Genesis 17 verse 21 says, "But my covenant will I establish with Isaac, which Sarah shall bear unto thee at this set time the next year." A beautiful young woman brought back from the kinsmen of Abram accompanied Eliezer to his homeland. As soon as Isaac set eyes on Rebekah, he fell in love with her, and she became his wife. This brought him great comfort after losing his beloved mother. Even so, after marrying his father's choice, he would have to wait 20 more years before children would arrive on the scene. Isaac was a very patient man. The fact that his wife couldn't bear children did not cause him any panic. He was an extremely wealthy man, but he didn't seek out other wives to provide him offspring. Rebekah was more than enough for him because he truly loved her. He entreated the Lord for his wife, and at the age of 60, God answered his prayers, and they were blessed with the entrance into the world of twins, Esau and Jacob. Genesis 25, verse 21 to 26. And Isaac entreated the Lord for his wife, because she was barren. And the Lord was entreated of him, and Rebekah his wife conceived. And when Rebekah's days to be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her womb. And the first came out red all over, like a hairy garment. And they called him Esau. And after that came out his brother, and his hand took hold on Esau's heel, and his name was called Jacob. And Isaac was 80 years old when she bare them. Some years after Isaac's boys were born, there was a famine in the land, similar to the one experienced by his father. Isaac, together with all he possessed, made a journey to Abimelech, king of the Philistines, in Gerar, because the Lord had appeared to him and given him the instruction that he must not go down to Egypt, but was to stay in this land, and God would be with him and bless him. For to him and his seed God had given all these countries. Genesis 26 verse 2 to 4 reads this, And the Lord appeared unto him and said, Go not down to Egypt, dwell in the land which I shall tell thee of. Sojourn in this land, and I will be with thee, and will bless thee, for unto thee and unto thy seed I will give all these countries, And I will perform the oath which I swear unto Abram thy father, and I will make thy seed to multiply as the stars of heaven, and will give unto thy seed all these countries, and in thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed. This was a fantastic promise. Like Abram, Isaac stood on, and even lived in the territory, the promised land, which God had intended for him to inherit, yet he never owned it. Isaac settled in Gerar and sowed seed in the land, and received in that very same year 100-fold return for his labour. For the Lord was with him and had blessed him. Everything he turned his hand to flourished. His wealth increased, going on and on, until his presence in Gerar became a problem for the citizens of that country, so much so that the Philistines envied him. The Lord's blessing forced Abram to fear for his own future. So he said to Isaac, "Go from us, for you are much mightier than we are." Isaac didn't put up a fight, even though God had promised that one day these lands would be his. He simply waited patiently for the Lord to give to him what he had promised. Every time Isaac's herdsmen dug a well, the herdsmen of Gerar strove with them, gradually pushing them out of the land. Isaac didn't want to enter into conflict with these people who had initially made room for him, so his herdsmen just continued digging wells until, after digging the well, Rehoboth, the men of Gerar left them alone. The Lord appeared again to Isaac, telling him not to be afraid, for the plan had not changed. They dug another well and settled in Beersheba. It wasn't long after this that King Gerar, together with a friend and the chief captain of his army, surprised Isaac, paying him a visit. Isaac voiced his shock by saying, "Why have you come to see me, seeing you hate me, and have sent me away from you?" King Gerar was honest with Isaac, sharing his fears that he had felt outnumbered and certainly outblessed. He recognized he was no match for Isaac because God was on his side. So he had come to make a deal with him that they would live in peace and not do each other harm. Isaac was a godly man, so he made him and his companions a feast, gave them a night's hospitality, and sent them on their way the following morning with the assurance that there would be peace between them. No fighting for the land. Isaac was not worried by the fact that he was kicked out of the promised possession because he had faith in his God, even though by this time he was 100 years old or thereabouts. And we grumble because the Lord makes us wait a few years for something he's promised us. We know very little about patience. These men of God, who are our cloud of witnesses, deserved their recognition from God because they paid their dues. Yet there was something basically wrong with Isaac. Why could Isaac not see what must have been staring him in the face for years? This is what it says in Genesis 25:28. And Isaac loved Esau because he did eat of his venison, but Rebekah loved Jacob. How is it possible that this godly man, Isaac, could prefer and love this child whom God actually hated? Malachi 1:2 says, "I have loved you, saith the Lord. Yet you say, Wherein hast thou loved us? Was not Esau Jacob's brother, saith the Lord? Yet I loved Jacob, and I hated Esau, and laid his mountains and his heritage waste for the dragons of the wilderness." And Romans 9:13, "As it is written, Jacob have I loved, but Esau have I hated." Rebekah must have shared with him what the Lord had told her when there were problems with her pregnancy. Even before her babies were born, she was warned that these children were going to be rivals, and there would be a reversal in their status, which would be God ordained. Genesis 15:23 says this, "And the Lord said unto her, 2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels. and the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elders shall serve the younger. God knew what was growing in the belly of Rebekah. He was well aware that there were two seeds growing together side by side. The one child would be the seed of the wicked one, and the other the seed of God. The same thing happened with Cain and Abel, whom we read about in 1 John, where the explanation is given for the way Cain reacted to his twin brother Abel. Yes, they also were twins, for it says that Eve bore twice from this one conception. She did not conceive again to produce Abel. He was the younger twin brother. 1 John 3 verse 12 says this, "Not as Cain, who was of that wicked one and slew his brother, and wherefore slew he him? Because his own works were evil and his brother's righteous." Evildoers will always oppose and hate those who live righteously. For all his faults, Jacob must have had a heart for God, because he envied his brother and desperately wanted the blessing of his forefathers for himself. Esau, who was due this honour by default, couldn't care less about it. The Bible actually goes so far as to say that he despised his birthright. How did God view this attitude? Well, I can say categorically that God did not like it at all. Esau, by his lifestyle, was constantly showing God that he didn't want to follow his designated destiny. He wanted to choose his own way of life. The relationship which God had with Abram did not fill Esau with wonder. Quite the opposite. He shunned it like the plague. His attitude and lifestyle proved that he hated God. So, what I can't understand is why Isaac loved Esau. Why did this godly man hold on to the son who God hated so much that he was ready to hand him all of the promises of Abram on a plate? We know that Isaac had a personal relationship with God because God spoke to him at times, giving him instructions such as where he should live and so on. So why didn't Isaac recognize Esau was not God's choice as the next in line for the blessing? This is what it says in Matthew chapter 15 verse 2-3. "Why do thy disciples transgress the traditions of the elders? For they wash not their hands when they eat bread." But he answered and said unto them, "Why do you also transgress the commandments of God by your tradition?" Galatians 1:14. "And profited in the Jews' religion above many my equals in mine own nation, being more exceedingly zealous of the traditions of my fathers." Colossians 2 verse 8. "Beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit, after the tradition of men, after the rudiments of the world, and not after Christ." Sometimes traditions, the way we've been brought up, our conditioning, hinders us from hearing the voice of God, who oftentimes asks us to contradict all we've learned, to prove us, and to prove that we will put him first in all situations. Isaac knew that Esau was the firstborn, and as such should inherit both the double portion and the blessing to carry on after himself. The Bible does not say that God spoke to Isaac in the same way that he spoke to Rebekah concerning the switch he'd planned. Isaac may have only had Rebekah's word to go on. Nevertheless, he must have watched and noted the character traits both boys were displaying as they grew up, and this should have given him rise to warning bells in his heart. He had a relationship with God, but it does not appear that he consulted God about the discrepancy he and his wife had in this matter. Perhaps he was afraid that God would say something which would go against tradition and cause him to irreparably hurt Esau, thus cutting off his relationship with his son. Who knows? But one thing is for sure. As far as he was concerned, Esau was the man for the future of their tribe. We read that Isaac was old and had become blind. This in itself says quite a bit regarding his spiritual state. In the Old Testament, it seemed that the closer you walk with God, the more physically healthy you were. There are many testimonies to confirm this if we look at Abraham, who lived to be 175 years old and fathered 6 more sons after his beloved wife, Sarah, died. Moses, at 120 years old, still maintained all his natural forces. Caleb was one of the 12 men who had spied out Canaan and come back with a good report, after being forced to tread the wilderness for the next 40 years at the age of 80. He told Joshua that he was still as strong as he was as a young man and was able to conquer the mountain. So why had Isaac become blind? This is such a sad story where Isaac is concerned. I was brought up to believe that he was a type of Jesus, so willing to be a sacrifice, so obedient to his father's wishes, such an example to emulate. Well, I can agree with all that. His life is a tremendous testimony to the grace of God. When he was under the care and protection of his father Abram, we can see that the life he lived was a righteous life, full of integrity. But when Abram was off the scene, I think things changed a little for Isaac. He didn't seem so strong on his own. Isaac's boys were only 15 years old, at the most, when his grandfather died. So it doesn't seem likely they were able to spend much time under his influence, which is a great pity, as he could have passed on to them so many valuable principles and much wisdom. In Genesis 26, we're informed that Canaan experienced a famine similar to the one in Abram's time. But God gave Isaac specific instructions not to go to Egypt for help. He was to go in blind faith to the land God guided him to, and there God would bless him. This is what it says in Genesis 26. And the Lord appeared unto him and said, Go not down into Egypt, dwell in the land which I shall tell thee of. Sojourn in this land, and I will be with thee, and I will bless thee. For unto thee and unto thy seed I will give all these countries, and I will perform the oath which I swear unto Abram my father. And I will make thy seed to multiply as the stars of heaven, and will give unto thy seed all these countries. And in thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed, because that Abram obeyed my voice, and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws. And Isaac dwelt in Gerar. There was one problem with this instruction, though. Isaac had a very beautiful wife, and he was afraid that the men of the city would kill him to get her. He resorted to telling everyone that Rebekah was his sister, just like his father Abraham had done when in a similar situation with Sarai. The problem with Isaac's story, though, was the fact that it was a huge lie. Rebekah was in no way his sister. She was his second cousin. Abram told people Sarai was his sister because she actually was. They had both come from the same father, Terah. But it was a complete lie when Isaac spoke the same words. Perhaps his father had shared this little testimony from his own past with him. But if that was the case, he would surely have glorified God when sharing the fact that Sarai was miraculously delivered from the clutches of the Egyptian Pharaoh, proving that God could be trusted and that Isaac should have faith. But Isaac was more afraid of men. Genesis 26. And it came to pass, when he had been there a long time, that Abimelech, king of the Philistines, looked out at a window and saw, and behold, Isaac was sporting with Rebekah his wife. And Abimelech called Isaac and said, Behold, of a surety she is your wife. And how saidst thou, She is my sister? And Isaac said unto him, Because I said, Lest I die for her. And Abimelech said, What is this you've done to us? One of the people might have lightly laid with your wife, and you should have brought guilt upon us. And Abimelech charged all his people, saying, He that toucheth this man or his wife shall surely be put to death. Isaac was not reprimanded by God for this lie and lack of trust. but he was certainly brought to task by King Abimelech. At 40 years of age, Esau married outside the family. But worse still, he married 2 women who were both Hittites. This was something Isaac had instilled into his sons that they must not do. And these alliances proved to be a grief of mind to both Isaac and Rebekah. Why? Because the future inheritance was now in jeopardy. Canaanite's seed was about to infiltrate Abram's seed. Isaac knew this was a big problem, but he would not deal with it. God had surely spoken to him time and time again concerning this, because it was going to have a massive impact on future generations. But Isaac must have ignored the voice, preparing to keep the relationship sweet between himself and his eldest son. Consequently, the physical and spiritual blindness began to set in. I say this because what happened when he was about to pass on the blessing to Esau is very revealing. Genesis 27. And it came to pass that when Isaac was old and his eyes were dim, so that he couldn't see, he called Esau his eldest son and said unto him, My son. And he said unto him, Behold, here am I. And he said, Behold, now I'm old, I know not the days of my death. Now therefore take, I pray thee, thy weapons, thy quiver and thy bow, and go out into the field, and take me some venison, and make me savoury meat, such as I love, and bring it to me, that I may eat, that my soul may bless thee before I die. At this point in time, Isaac was both physically and spiritually blind. He didn't even know when it was his time to go. He lived over 20 more years after this incident. All I can say is, thank God, he wanted feeding before he passed on the blessing. That was a mercy of God to delay him giving everything God had promised Abram to Satan. During this time of delay, God intervened, and Jacob, disguised as Esau, went into the tent with the food. Same chapter, Genesis 27. And Rebekah took goodly raiment of her eldest son Esau, which were with her in the house, and put them upon Jacob her younger son. And she put the skins of the kids of the goats upon his hands, and upon the smooth of his neck. And she gave the savoury meat and the bread, which she had prepared, into the hand of her son Jacob. And he came unto his father, and said, My father. And he said, Here am I. Who art thou, my son? And Jacob said unto his father, I am Esau, thy firstborn. I've done according as thou badest me. Arise, I pray thee, sit and eat my venison, that thy soul may bless me. And Isaac said unto his son, How is it that thou hast found it so quickly, my son? And he said, Because the Lord thy God brought it to me. And Isaac said unto Jacob, Come near, I pray thee, that I may feel thee, my son, whether thou be my very son Esau or not. And Jacob went near unto Isaac his father, and he felt him and said, The voice is Jacob's, but the hands are the hands of Esau. And he discerned him not, because his hands were hairy, and his brother Esau's hands. So he blessed him. And he said, Art thou my very son Esau? And he said, I am. And he said, Bring it near to me, and I will eat of my son's venison, that my soul may bless thee. And he brought it near to him, and he did eat. And he brought him wine, and he drank. And his father Isaac said unto him, Come near now, and kiss me, my son. And he came near and kissed him, and he smelled the smell of his raiment, and blessed him, and said, See, the smell of my son is as the smell of a field which the Lord has blessed. Therefore God give thee of the dew of heaven, and the fatness of the earth, and plenty of corn and wine. Let people serve thee, and nations bow down to thee. Be Lord over thy brethren, and let thy mother's sons bow down to thee. Cursed be every one that curses thee, and blessed be he that blesses thee. Before we criticise Isaac for getting it wrong here, we need to take a long, hard look at our own lives. How often do we do something because it feels right to do it, or because we think God is telling us to do it? If because we can't hear the voice of the Lord, we rely on our feelings and thoughts to find His will, then we are lost. Eventually, we will lose our sight because our vision will be clouded, causing us to begin to walk in darkness. God will withhold His revelation for there will be no point in Him guiding us anymore. Isaac had lived with his sons for 40 plus years. Every day, he will have had some form of communication with them. Even though he was blind, he would have been able to distinguish their voices apart. What on earth happened on this most important day for the future of their family? Isaac quite rightly recognized that it was the voice of Jacob, but he believed his senses, his touch, his smell, and was blinded to the fact that Jacob was feigning to be his brother Esau. How blind can you be? Surely he knew his voice. If he could do this physically with the son he was communing with on an everyday basis, how easy would it have been to hear God and not recognize His voice? There was a massive breakdown in communication. I'm going to voice my opinion that perhaps Isaac lost his relationship with God when he decided to honour his self-willed son above God. Even before the children were born, Rebecca was struggling in her pregnancy. She was in such discomfort and pain that she asked the Lord why He had allowed her to conceive if it meant she was likely to die giving birth. God shared with Rebecca that things were not going to be normal with his two children, for already there was a battle for supremacy raging. I don't for one moment think that Rebecca would keep this information to herself. She and Isaac were besotted with each other, totally in love. This knowledge would have given them both peace of mind, thinking that God was in control of the whole situation. But this information was not something Isaac wanted to hear. It wasn't protocol. He was a man of principle and integrity, so this did not sit right with him. Instead of speaking to God about it, he chose to ignore his wife. Genesis 25. And Isaac entreated the Lord for his wife because she was barren, and the Lord was entreated of him. And Rebekah, his wife, conceived. And the children struggled together within her. And she said, If it's so, why am I thus? And she went to inquire of the Lord. And the Lord said to her, 2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels. And the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger. This sentimentality concerning children is not an isolated account in the Bible. There was a priest who acted in the same manner and suffered the consequences of that mistake also. This is 1 Samuel 2. And there came a man of God unto Eli, and said unto him, Thus saith the Lord, Did I plainly appear unto the house of thy father when they were in Egypt, in Pharaoh's house? And did I choose him out of all the tribes of Israel to be my priest, to offer upon mine altar, to burn incense, to wear an ephod before me? And did I give unto the house of thy father all the offerings made by fire of the children of Israel? Wherefore kick ye at my sacrifice and at mine offering, which I have commanded in my habitation? And honour thy sons above me, to make yourselves fat with the chiefest of all the offerings of my people, of Israel my people. Wherefore, saith the Lord God of Israel, I said indeed that thy house and the house of thy father should walk before me for ever. But now, the Lord said, be it far from me. For them that honour me I will honour, and they that despise me shall be lightly esteemed. If you have been called by God and made the commitment to serve him, then I must warn you that this is not an easy path that you've chosen. Jesus is looking for 100% commitment and surrender, so that he can fulfill his purposes in your life and on this earth. We all have a choice. Even as parents, we have to decide which side we're on if our children flaunt their waywardness and ungodly lifestyle. Jesus is always asking the question, do you love me more than these? Matthew 10. He that loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. He that loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. Proverbs 8:13. The fear of the Lord is to hate evil, pride and arrogance, and the evil way, and the froward mouth do I hate. Psalm 97 verse 10. Ye that love the Lord, hate evil. He preserveth the souls of his saints. He delivereth them out of the hand of the wicked. End of the chapter.